To open, I would first like to say a karakia to set the intentions of our hui meeting. I te hui, whaia te matauranga kia marama, kia whaitake na mahi katoa, tu maia, tu kaha, araha atu, araha mai, tato, ia tato katoa. For this gathering, seek knowledge for understanding, have purpose in all that you do, stand tall, be strong, let us show respect for each other. I now invite Dean, our Deputy Chair, to come forward and say a few words on the passing of our colleague Brian Miller.
Thank you, Catherine. Good evening, and once again, thank you for coming along this evening. I would like to acknowledge the contribution of Brian Miller, a fellow board member who unexpectedly passed away earlier this month after a short illness at the age of 78. Over the years, Brian served as an elected member of the Dunedin City Council during various terms, including 2001 to 2004, 2010 to 2013, and most recently from 2019 to 2022. With each term, he demonstrated unwavering dedication to the causes he believed in and a relentless pursuit of what he thought was right for the people he served. One of the causes closest to Brian's heart was the preservation of high-class land and soils on the Torrey Plains. He staunchly opposed most rezoning efforts that could potentially lead to extensive development, working tirelessly to protect the natural beauty of our region. Another cause that deeply resonated with Brian was the fight against using Riccarton Road as an arterial bypass. For more than 3 decades, he persistently wrote about the implications of such a decision and passionately urged for alternatives. His letters to the ODT captured his determination and unwavering advocacy, making him a familiar and controversial voice on this matter. Brian was a strong advocate for road safety, also on Riccarton Road. He fought passionately to lower the speed limit, recognising the importance of protecting the lives of those who traverse that road daily. Ironically, Brian's efforts came to fruition just 1 week after his passing, and he did not live to witness the success of his relentless perseverance. In reflecting on Brian's life and his convictions, it is important to acknowledge that disagreements are a natural part of life. Despite not aligning with all of his decisions, I can respect and admire him for standing firm in his beliefs. Brian's commitment to his values was a testament to his character, his integrity, and his determination to fight for what he believed was right. In respect to Brian, I would like you to observe a moment's silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. The number one priority of the Mosgiel-Taieri Community Board's community plan for 2023 is the creation of a heavy traffic bypass for Mosgiel to separate the heavy traffic that transits through Mosgiel on State Highway 87, Gordon Road, from the community for which Mosgiel calls home. These trucks pose an unacceptable safety risk for our vulnerable citizens, our ever-increasing numbers of children and senior members of our community who must cross Gordon Road every day to go about their business or to reach school. These trucks detract from the experience of shopping, visiting the hairdresser, or just catching up with friends passing on the street. The delight of sitting outside your favourite cafe, enjoying a coffee, is reduced when a stock truck rolls past. This issue was identified as a priority by the DCC in 2003, 20 years ago. Again in 2013, the separation of heavy traffic from the population of Mosgiel was listed a top priority in the DCC's 2013 Integrated Transport Plan. That was 10 years ago. On behalf of the Board, I wish to thank you all for coming to this meeting. Tonight we will hear from representatives of our schools, our senior citizens and our retailers on Gordon Road. We will hear about the DCC's plan in 2008 to widen Riccarton Road and include a shared path for cyclists and walkers. We will learn of why this didn't happen. We will hear for the first time about a bold new venture with potentially massive benefit for many communities within Dunedin. A venture that will contribute materially towards Dunedin's carbon zero by 2030 goals and Waka Kotahi's road to zero safety goals. but a venture which adds a great deal of urgency to the matter we're dealing with tonight. We will hear from the DCC and their response to the Mosgiel-Taieri community about this issue. We want this to be a positive meeting based on establishing where we are now, where we want to go, and how we're going to get there. This is about working with our essential logistics operators to both improve efficiency and reduce their risk of being involved in tragic incidents due to exposure to light vehicle and pedestrian traffic through multiple intersections and pedestrian crossings. We shouldn't get hung up on trying to decide on alternative routes. That decision will be made later through consultation. It could even include a route not yet thought of. The Mosgiel-Taieri Community Board is looking for solidarity from the community towards finally getting a decisive outcome to an issue that has literally divided Mosgiel for decades. You will have the opportunity to ask questions of our guest speakers at the conclusion of the presentations, but we ask that you restrict this to a concise, direct question for the panel. I would like to now invite our first speaker, Mr. Greg Hurley, Principal of Silverstream Primary School, to speak on behalf of principals on the Taieri.
Kia ora koutou. Holy moly, when I agreed to do this, I thought I might be talking to 20 or 30 people. And I hope I don't offend anybody. You're not my normal kind of age group that I'm talking to. So normally I can be a clown and get away with it. I won't be tonight. Anyway, so why am I here? I guess to advocate. We'll give a perspective for our young people, our youth, our children, and our community. Obviously with a lens to the traffic and our issues out here. Excuse me. So what kind of numbers are we talking here? You might be surprised, or you may know, that there's actually 11 schools in our Taieri cluster. So we go as far as Taieri Beach School, right through Outram, Lee Stream, Middlemarch, actually feeding into Taieri College. So in Mosgiel alone, we're talking in excess of 1,200 primary children. And more than that in the secondary, 1,200 plus. Multiple early childhood centres, I think you'd be aware of that. There are 8 or 9 depending on if you're counting playgroups minimum, and I haven't got numbers for them. So if you thought you were going to get numbers from me, you can go home still mystified. But I'm estimating we're talking about 3,000 to 4,000 children and young people that are using our roads and our community. It'll be no surprise to you that all of the schools have seen multiple near misses and multiple traffic incidents almost on a daily basis. Now, I know that hasn't got much to do necessarily with our main road, but it's a factor that we're dealing with, and they're complex issues. They're not as simple as just moving traffic. I know many of you will be aware of that. We also have to be aware, as everybody knows here, we're going to increase population happening in Mosgiel. That's having a dramatic effect on our schools. In fact, we might need another meeting like this just to discuss where these kids are going to go, because we're almost full right across the Taieri. Taieri College is full. We have room for maybe another 40, 50 kids on the Taieri before we're going to need more classrooms. We don't have them. So we're having to talk to the ministry and say, hey, do you realise there's going to be another 200 or 300 kids out here? Minimum, I don't know. But where are they going to go? But for the purposes of this meeting, obviously we need to keep that in the forefront of our planning. So for schools and for our whole community, it's not just about that strategic stuff. It's about resourcing, enforcing traffic management, education. I've talked a little about that, but we have a lot of programs in schools currently for road safety, road safe, bike safe, keeping ourselves safe, you name it. We're doing a lot of that. But of course, cities have changed. There's a lot more traffic now, we know that. And they're going faster, generally. Obviously, the big part of this meeting, I think, is going to be the strategic traffic design. All of those things play their part in keeping our kids and communities safe. Strategic traffic design isn't my area of expertise. You might be surprised to hear that. But kids are. And I can see that most of you can attest that the most sensible, road-wise kid is still impulsive, is still distracted, is still oblivious to the dangers of the roads. And how can they understand the roads until maybe they've been driving them for 10, 15 years? Let's be realistic. We won't even go near teenagers. I have 4, and I'm sure those of you in the audience, and there's plenty that have had teenagers, you can attest, they don't have a frontal lobe. Then you put some earbuds in them and a phone in front of them, well, hello. We just won't go there. But we know that there's a danger out there. They're rewiring, they come back, they're going to be good citizens. But they're not very road-wise at the best of times, as we well know. So my view on heavy traffic on Gordon Road doesn't make sense. Never has, but whenever you change traffic design, I was involved with the DCC and some of the safer road projects. And it's interesting, you come up with an idea and you think, hey look, what we need is this here. Well, human psychology and traffic patterns and behaviour change your whole point of view of, okay, well if we do that, we're going to add more danger here. So I get that. Any solution that we have out there is not going to be perfect for everybody, and some of it might not make sense until you start seeing the statistics and the psychology behind some of them. So, if talking about heavy traffic on Gordon Road doesn't make sense. I think really it's just for one of our most vulnerable groups as a whole, 3,000 to 4,000 children and young people, it's just another danger that they're having to negotiate on a daily basis. So whatever decision is made, or whatever answer that might come from this consultation, it's my point that we need to really keep in mind the 3,000 plus kids and young people that are walking, scootering, biking, busing, whatever they're doing, when they're sharing our roads, we need to make sure that Mosgiel is a safe, accessible place for our kids and our families, so that they can enjoy our great community and what it has to offer. Nani.
Thank you, Greg. I now invite Mr. Brendan Moore from Chatswood Village to speak about his experience as a senior citizen using Gordon Road.
I know it's amazing, but I'm actually looking after the over 80s. There are 3 villages in Mosgiel. There's Chatswood, there's the Grange, and I can never read it. The other one down the other side of which I'm sure half of it come from. I was given this duty about 5 days ago, in which time I've spent a fair amount of time talking to my neighbours, and they all seem to come to the same decision, and that is they don't go anywhere near Gordon Road. They will drive up High Street, Factory Road, Church Road, up Forfar Street, and they will try and park somewhere where they don't have to sit on and park their cars, so that they try to open the doors and get flattened by a lorry. And I can fully agree with them. It's been like this for at least the last 5 years. I can remember I had coffee at Blend, and I can remember the time when you used to be able to sit in Blend and see the lorries go by. Now you can't, because they fill up all the windows. And it's just getting worse and worse. I have got friends whose husbands have not been able to drive anymore because of various health factors. And their wives have taken over, and they are petrified of driving anywhere near Factory Road. In fact, in many cases, anywhere in Mosgiel. I'm sure that this is a common thing, And if you look at the numbers of people over the age of 65 or 70 in Mosgiel, it will be twice the number of children and maybe more. The children are growing and getting brighter. We, unfortunately, are getting older and thicker. And we struggle, I'm sure you do, with driving, with parking, with trying to see which way lorries are coming. So, in my book, I would do nothing other than either put a speed range on lorries, or better still, just get rid of them. The other part of my life is that I cycle, and I cycle virtually every day. And I don't go anywhere near the road. I go down Church Road, or normally I go down Forsyth Street, and I keep off the main road completely. I think I've only fallen off once, and I was very glad I didn't have a lorry behind me, otherwise I would have been spreading about 14 places. But, you know, for people who I see cycling through the main road, I just cannot understand it. It's just lethal. Excuse me. I have just about come to the end, but I'm sure that if you have any questions, I'll try my very best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I now invite Mrs. Fiona Leith from the retail community to speak.
Hello, my name is Fiona Leith, and my husband and I are the owners of Mosgiel Garden Fresh, where I am here to give my view from being a retailer on Gordon Road, Mosgiel. I have been able to speak with some of the retailers on Gordon Road and hear some of their concerns about the heavy trucks currently using Gordon Road. Gordon Road is a very busy road in Mosgiel, and we see a large number of trucks going past our shop. Our main concern, along with many other retailers on Gordon Road, is to see one of our or another business's customers trying to cross the road and being struck by one of the large trucks that use Gordon Road. We also often see a large number of school students crossing the road outside our shop, with some running across the road in the path of some of the trucks. We, like many of the other businesses on Gordon Road, have a lot of customers who park across the street to visit our shop. We often help them across Gordon Road with their groceries to make sure they can get across safely. We feel for the truck drivers and the companies they work for, as it's not their fault that Gordon Road is currently the best option. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. I now invite Mr. Evan Matheson, former DCC Senior Roading Projects Engineer, to speak about the DCC's attempt to widen and improve Riccarton Road in 2008.
Good evening, everyone. It's a fantastic turnout, so it's like Greg said, it's a bit of a surprise. I didn't expect a crowd quite like this, and I haven't spoken in public for quite a few years, so bear with me. A lot of familiar faces out there, and I may have dealt with a number of you back in the early 2000s when I was at Dunedin City Council, but let's be clear, I'm not with the Dunedin City Council. What I'll talk about here are just my recollections and my thoughts. Jim may talk about what's happening in the future, but it's just what I know and what I can share with you and just set the scene. Certainly fair to say that Riccarton Road at the moment is probably not of a good standard, in my opinion. It's a bit of a 1970s or 1980s sort of design, if you know what I mean. And I think we can do better. I certainly understand the temporary speed limit that's there at the moment, and it's arguably the right answer for the very short term, but again, in my opinion, the speed limits or low speed limits are not the answer. It really does need an upgrade if it's going to be used as intended, and how perhaps the traffic is moving around the region at the moment. There's quite a lot of good information available already. The road has been surveyed, detailed survey from the railway crossing on Gladstone Road. I think it was right through to State Highway 87. The preliminary design was done back in the day, so we understand what it takes to widen the road to whatever width that's deemed appropriate. Ground investigations, they've been done. Obviously, it's a Taieri plain. Ground conditions can be a bit of a challenge, but that information has been collected. When I was involved, property discussions, a lot of you will know, or you may not know, the road width, we call it the road corridor, which is like fence to fence, hedge to hedge. Typically it's about 20 metres, a typical road, or it's a chain in the old money. Riccarton Road, unfortunately, the width varies quite a bit, 20 metres in some places, 10 metres in other places. So that's quite a challenge moving ahead about how you fit a road to the standard that is deemed appropriate, because some land will need to be purchased to make it all happen. So that's potentially quite an issue, and I expect there'll be property owners in the room this evening that'll would have perhaps dealt with myself or someone else from council at the time, and it's there's a lot to consider. It's a challenging discussion, and preliminary costings for an upgrade have been done. Obviously, old money. Things have moved on. Construction's not getting cheaper, but the indicative ballpark figures are available. Just touching on some of the obstacles, I've talked about the road width and the road corridor. The Otago Regional Council has scheduled drains in the area. Those big deep ditches that are right on the side of the road, they pop up everywhere out in the Taieri. We can't just fill them in, they're there for a purpose. We need to be very careful about how we keep them in place and keep them functioning. Taieri Plain, flood risk, you've probably all seen it, they'll keep happening. That's just the weather after all, isn't it? Need to be very careful about the flow paths. If we do an upgrade, the water still needs to get from the top side of the Taieri to the southern side without putting obstacles like a new road in the way. So that's all doable. The intersections, I'm sure just about everyone is aware of the intersections at Bush Road and at Duke's Road. Again, adequate, I suppose, if you're being generous, but they could certainly do with improving, and this is a grand opportunity if the council wishes to do an upgrade to do some very good improvements at those intersections. What that looks like, there are a number of options. It's not for me to put those options forward, but it's again a great opportunity to do something that's arguably a little bit overdue. Probably the only unknown, the bridge over the Silver Stream. Obviously it carries heavy vehicles at the moment, so that's fine, but It'll be a detail for the DCC and the structural engineers to figure out just whether that bridge can be upgraded. There's a number of clever ways you can upgrade that bridge for strength. But again, it's all quite doable. So while an upgrade might perhaps seem complex after those few issues that I've run through, they're not particularly unusual. They happen on a regular basis throughout the country and here in Dunedin and Otago. So it's not really a barrier to green lighting the project in terms of construction. But again, I'd like to see it built to a good standard, a standard that's perhaps fit for purpose in today's terms. And that doesn't necessarily mean perhaps a heavy traffic bypass, but just traffic in general. I think the numbers have changed quite significantly, and there might be a time for council to think about it while prioritising other projects around the region. So really, I'm here just to perhaps share my knowledge of what happened in the past. I'm not going to talk about why the project didn't go ahead at the time. I don't think that's helpful. We need to think about moving forward rather than perhaps we got just caught out a little bit or stumbled to get it across the line. But again, I think looking at the numbers here tonight, there's perhaps a clear indication that now might be the time to really talk to the DCC in a meaningful manner and see what can be done. And I'm happy to share my knowledge with the DCC in my retired state for what it's worth, if it's something that they wish to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. I now invite Mr. Kevin Winders, CEO of Port Otago, to present on Port Otago's plans for North Tide.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Winders, great to be here. So you'll be wondering why I'm here. If I get this PowerPoint to go, you right?
Give us 2 seconds, so just shut off and let you use. It's going to second.
Here we go. So while he's cranking that up, I'll tell you a little bit about Port Otago really briefly. We're a port down at Port Chalmers. We own a little bit of land in Dunedin. We own a little bit of land in Auckland, and we own a little bit of land in Hamilton. And our catchment of cargo for all our exporters is pretty much South Canterbury, so Timaru down to Bluff. So pretty much that's our catchment, and all the way in there. And we're New Zealand's most biased export port. So everything comes out of our region, very little things come in. So we don't have TVs, couches and all that sort of stuff coming in. So most of the containers that come into us are empty. So that's us pretty quickly. And all the ratepayers in the room, you own us. So we're owned by the Otago Regional Council. And every year we try to pay half the rates. And that's our objective. Okay, is that a bit better? So, why am I here? If you look at Port Chalmers, that's our messy port at the moment. And we've got about 10 hectares of industrial land there for our port. And they're not making any more of it. And what we've done is we've done plenty of activity there over the years. That's taking containers in, but we've been repairing containers, storing containers, and effectively over the last 5 or 6 years, growth has been coming through the region. So effectively, we have to support growth, and we've run out of room. So what typically every port does in New Zealand is they take the containers full off the ships or empty off the ships and try to evac them off the terminal as quickly as you can. So you don't tend to have empty containers and repair on your terminal. It's very expensive land and there's no more of it. So what we do is we rail it into Strathallan Street. So if you've been to Strathallan Street, there's the New Zealand Post and there's main freight. And tucked in behind there, there's this wee inland depot we've got. And it's on Kiwi Rail land and it's leased. And that lease runs out. And if you look at that, the engineers and operational people in the room, it's a very funny shape. It's a little arrowhead. So most of the operational people in the room will like a big rectangle. They're like a big rail siding going down, all nice. It's a very difficult little site, but it's got us through the last sort of 10 years. And a while back, we purchased these sites in Mosgiel. And we purchased them because we knew we'd run out of road in Dunedin. Now, if you've walked around or driven around Dunedin at the moment, you've got the hospital build starting to crank up a little bit. So there's not too much vacant industrial land in Dunedin. So we own a wee bit of it, most of it's occupied. So you can't find yourself a big lay-down yard. Now, if you go to Coronation Valley, 10 years ago, there's hardly anything in Coronation Valley. And Coronation Valley is nearly full. There's industrial land all the way through there. And out on Duke's Road, probably 5 or 6 years ago, there was a few industrial sites, and now they're nearly all built out. So here you are. We invested in this some time ago. Now we're getting to the point now we have to make a change and come out here. So Port Otago will bring in an inland depot out here because we've just run out of land. So we invested in this a long time ago for the very reason we're here today. So you can see the 3 sites. Fonterra own the rest of it, so any Fonterra staff in the room. That's not us, it's the A, B and C. So we sort of surround the old Vortex plant and Fonterra. And the beautiful thing, and there's a lovely big railway siding there. So what it gives us the ability to do is bring product in there and shuttle it straight down to the port. So that takes all trucks off the road, it's good for us, lower carbon, and utilises rail. And that's a really good thing for us. And it'll take them all the way down to port. Okay? But it will drive trucking activity there, because people have to drop off containers into an inland depot. So you'll have some more container trucks coming. So that's just a function of the beast. Okay? Now,
Recommendations as a truck and logistics operator.
Thanks, Catherine. So on the problem, we're from the trucking community, which is an awesome community like yours. So you're going to pop up, please. But it's actually nice to be asked. Actually, when you are the problem, it's actually nice to be asked instead of getting eggs thrown at you. And you haven't, give a voice to anywhere. So I really appreciate Andrew inviting me to come and speak on behalf of the transport community. So I just want to speak a wee bit about the Dines Group, and also I'm speaking on behalf of the trucking game.
Let's move on, sorry.
It's a Scania, it doesn't look very
That's
good.
done right. Let's go back to the floor, right?
I was all psyched for this too.
Oh, it's the full week do it one.
That one. Mosgiel, which one is it?
There's 2 coming down to say
Anyway, I'll tell you a wee bit about the Dines Group. We're 54 years old. Started in a little town called Tapanui, and with my mum and dad started it, and so moved to Dunedin 20 years ago. Our brand is a number of brands, which you'll see shortly, but mainly what we do is logs, Otago, Southland and South Canterbury, with the brand of Dunedin carrying the brand of Dines, obviously, and the brand of Southern Logging, which is based down in Winton and Invercargill. Got just close to 180 trucks, 300 trailers, and we're based all over the country. And we've got awesome people that help us deliver what's needed to our customers. One of our companies is Icon Logistics, which is a container company. So it does dry storage, food grade, container depot, container storage, and you would have seen them all around Dunedin with an awesome group of people that deliver that. We've got a little business in Edendale called Herbert's Transport, which is a general business, so it doesn't cart stock trucks through Mosgiel, thank God. But it does a lot of general down in Edendale, and we spread 2 million litres a day of whey, which is a byproduct from Fonterra to farms around Southland. And we've been doing that since '94. We're the first in New Zealand and Australia to bring in a new machine that injects it all into the ground. And what we've done is then added liquid fertiliser in with it. Another thing that this machine does is actually inject nitrogen into the ground from effluent ponds. If you just spray effluent onto the paddock, it loses 40% of nitrogen. So by injecting it into the ground, it's 100%. So we're really innovative. Another one of our companies is Transport Repairs and Service. It does all our maintenance on our trucks to keep them all safe on the road. This came because we weren't getting our trucks done properly and safely, so we started this business up 8 years ago. It's got depots from Marlborough right to Invercargill, so over 100 mechanics and 16 apprentices. And 50% of this company is owned by the senior mechanics in the companies through the depots. Cool little company, awesome people. Blue Direct is our IT company, and it helps us stay ahead of our competitors. It's a business that we started 8 years ago because we couldn't find the right system to deliver what we wanted and understand what good looks like. And our CEO, Matt Horan, at the moment is giving it a revamp, bringing AI in, all bringing technology and putting it to the cloud. This keeps us sharp with our customers and keep our customers happy. Bulk Liquid Solutions is a transfer station business we started, and I'll talk about that later on. And then HWR Richardson that owns 50% of our group. They're an awesome family business down in Invercargill, very innovative, and we've got a fantastic relationship. We've actually been banging through Mosgiel for 50 years, if you believe it. I remember many times in the old passenger seat with the old man, but in '72, a guy called Alan McKenzie brought a company off Ron Johnson, his name was, and along with my mum and dad and uncle, which is Taieri Caring, we're actually the first company to cart the first load of logs out of city forest many years ago. And then in September '77, there was a consortium of sawmills in Otago that started wood chipping at their sawmills and exporting the wood chips out of Port Chalmers, which was the old Ogden sawmill on the corner of Riccarton and Bush Road. And then later on, there was a chip mill built at Post Plant beside Fonterra. So we're not new to Mosgiel. We're actually a bit more than a trucking company. We call ourselves a solution architect company. And so we don't collect trucks. We actually work a lot with rail, and we like finding solutions for customers. We actually, we are creating the end-to-end solutions for our customers, and that's what we're all about. People is the most important thing in our organisation. We've got, as I said, we've got 16 apprentice mechanics in transport repairs, and we've got a cadetship in our group that an awesome guy, Des Morris, runs. He's outstanding. And we bring these young people through. Most of them are from school. They don't like school, but like me, they didn't get much out of it. But they're cool people, and they really love the industry and make it work. Got a young man called Sam Gear. He's an extraordinary young man. He had, unfortunately, a medical issue that he couldn't get his Class 2 licence and had to wait for 2 years longer to get it. He stuck at it, and these young people are going to be our next dispatchers and next managers. So it's breeding them into the game and understand what good looks like. Listening's actually quite a powerful tool. Not many people have it, but we teach a lot of our young people you've got to listen to get ahead. And systems are critical. IT systems, if you haven't got decent IT systems in your business today, you ain't going to make it. Vision's quite critical. I think this goes for just as much for businesses as other organisations. You must have vision, and it's building the foundation before the growth. If you wait till growth comes and then try to build the foundation, it's going to cost you twice as much and not have the outcome you want. It's a really critical tool. Talking about bulk liquid solutions and sustainability, we had a concept 8 years ago where we come up with a transfer station. So Fonterra, west of Edendale, a little place called Raised Bush, had 2 million litres in a 15k radius. And so that Fonterra were cutting all that to Edendale from Raised Bush, at 25,000 litres a load. They couldn't get an HPMV, which is a permit to go between 50 and 58 tonne. These come out about 15 years ago where you could get cart heavy weights on roads. Unfortunately, you can't, and understandably, you can't cart them on gravel roads. So we come up with a solution to build a transfer station at Raised Bush. And last week, the team at Bulk Liquid Solutions just finished the 13th site off at Brightwater, which Grant Driver leads up for us, and great guy. So over the 7 years, we've saved them over 6 million Ks that haven't been run, and the outcome is pretty staggering, and that'll just continue to grow. Sustainability is what our customers want, so that's what we're trying to deliver. This is the first hybrid hydrogen truck in New Zealand. Now, Richardson's have done a significant amount of work on hydrogen. It's not new technology, it's quite common in Europe, but Richardson's are going to build a hydrogen plant in Otago, which will be finished in February, and then they're going to roll it out through the country. So there'll be 10 of these on the road throughout that Richardson and Dines group by February, March. Cummins Motors, which is the biggest engine provider in the world, we've got a 30-year relationship with them, building a combustion motor that's 100% hydrogen, which will be released in 2027-28, which will be really exciting. So this technology is coming hard and fast, and we're trying to convince them to give it to us in 2025 to be a test run. Electric trucks aren't going to work. 0.4% of trucks in the world that are built without wheel dimension on our terrain, and the weights we cart is 0.4% of trucks built like that in the world. And another, there's multiple minerals that you have to get to make a battery, and what they're realising now, I think it's 13, don't comment to it, but it takes 8 years to get a resource consent to make the battery. And in fact, Toyota and Ford have come out and said they're not going to make any more EV cars, they're going to go hydrogen. So this technology is coming fast, it's quite exciting. But getting to the stuff that you guys want to get to, I think this is quite important. This is the comments I got off Facebook, because I've been studying that up, seeing if there's many rotten eggs going to come at me today. And we get all that, and we understand it. And the council have got a plan. We've got to work together with the council. There's no throwing stones, and there's no looking at the rear vision mirror. I've already been there. You can look out the front window screen. We've got to work together and actually help the council with solutions. Now, the council may have a plan, and they may have, it could be a brand new road, which we call greenfields. And if it is that, there'll be planning, there'll be engineering, there'll be consents, and it will take time. So we know there needs to be a solution now, because if there isn't a solution that comes now, what is going to happen is Mosgiel is going to get busier and busier, and trucks will find other ways, like East Torrey. Now, I've been asked, is there another alternative for heavy traffic? Now, this is from a truck driver's point of view. I left school before form, so I've got no degrees, but I'm not a bad truck driver. So from our point of view, we would have the traffic coming on State Highway 1 going down Riccarton Road, going straight down onto Jukes Road south and then heading to Jukes Road north. Now, it's not the perfect road, but it's the only road that will work except for Gordon Road. So when you're coming along the road in a truck, you get slow down to take this corner. We're about 35 k's coming around this corner. And if you were a truck driver's point of view and had a government budget, you'd actually make this corner a little bit nicer to be able to come around there nice and easy. And then as you're coming around that corner, there's no need to speed up because you've got to slow down for the railway. So you're coasting down there, fluting the brakes, not even touching the accelerator. Once you get across the railway line, it is a bit of a different story. The road is very narrow, and it is tight for 2 trucks, but it isn't possible. The road definitely needs to be upgraded, but the reason the road does need to be widened, or another solution for public to use, walking, riding, horses. And that's where we've got to look outside the square. But as you keep going down this road, we're coming on to Bush Road, and a suggestion that we might have is that you put a couple of speed bumps on either side of Bush Road to slow the traffic right down, with a couple of big stop signs, so you're restricting the hazard of oncoming. And then as we carry on down Riccarton Road, we're coming up to Duke's Road South, which is a little bit of a challenging corner, not impossible, but again, to make things easy and to get the flow right, to help moving the trucks quicker, would be an opportunity, is to put a nice wee sweeping bend in here. It's coming there, like that. Now again, people say it probably can't be done, but as a truck driver's point of view, that's how we look at it. And as we're cruising along here, Duke's Road South, coming up to the intersection to Gordon Road, which is a real nasty one, there'll be many solutions, but from a truck driver's solution, we think a roundabout would actually work really well here. Because it wouldn't be that hard to do. We've measured it all out, but again, engineering are far more qualified than I am. You'd get nice flow, and we wouldn't have so many accidents, hopefully overall. But as we carry on down this road, this road's good, just again needs to be upgraded. At the moment, Riccarton Road down to Duke's Road isn't HPMV certified. We can't put heavy weights down there. But if the road was upgraded, then we'd be able to. And as Kevin talked about, this land is growing rapidly and fast because there's no other land left in Dunedin to build. And it makes good sense to run a train out of here. For us, we can't walk grapes and Marlborough, and we can't a significant amount of wine to Auckland, but we put all that on rail. So we've got a really good relationship with rail. We actually don't want to come into cities because it takes too much time and suffocates productivity. So we're willing to work with the community. So for all those people on Riccarton Road that are now cursing and really got their eggs ready to throw at me, I want to talk about a few safety features that we have in our trucks now. It's quite cool. So this is 17th of June. This is a picture of all our trucks all over the country. So if anyone rang up and complained, we just ask exactly where that truck is, where they are, and it'll tell us exactly what road, what time, how fast they're going, truck driver's name. It's really, really cool. But the first thing we do is we've got cameras in all our trucks. And so we look at what's happened. Here's a truck, here's one just out of Melbourne, truck and trailer, double yellow line. Now we get this, we'll get 10 of these a week. We'll get 10 of these a week. Here's another one. This guy was on, I don't know what he was doing. So the truck driver community put up this every bloody day. And in our own group, we'll have 10 of these that we give to the police a week, and there's 3 to 4 convictions a week that come out of this. So all of our trucks have got this camera. So if there are issues, we just ring, we'll deal with it, we've got cameras. For a driver that sees an issue, he pushes the button and it records 5 seconds prior and 5 seconds after. It's fantastic technology. Another great technology is fatigue camera. This young fella was a bit dozy. You'll see him dozing, you'll see he closes his eyes for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then his seats buzz, and it wakes him up, gives him a hell of a fright. But what this technology does, if it happens 3 times within the hour, and then we get a phone call, and we give him a ring. What's going on, brother? You have a bit of a yarn? And it's really good technology. This is in all of our trucks, so you'll see them dozing off and then you'll get the buzz. See? Yeah, they've caught me 2 or 3 times on this. It's really good, and I had a sleep apnea problem which I probably didn't want to admit, but once I seen that I realised I need to go and get it sorted. And we had another young guy, we had a couple of guys that are extraordinary drivers, great for our company, been real legends, and on a Thursday it went off twice, and on a Friday it went off once, and we were talking to him, but then on the Monday it went off twice, so we got him in at a yarn. He said he didn't fall asleep, showed him the video, and said, mate, ain't good. Got him off to a doctor, he had diabetes, he had sleep apnea. Then we found out he split up with his partner 2 weekends prior, and the weekend wasn't so good. So we've got these awesome heroes driving for our company, and they're all young, but they're, as my old mate over there said, we're all getting a bit older. So, if we didn't pick up those signs back then, their health issues would have got worse and worse, and it could have been quite bad. So it's really cool. So road user charges are a tax that we pay to the government. So Dine's group alone pay about $10 million a year, just in case any of you guys are saying, well, you can pay for the road. Kind of we already do. In the trucking community, but we do want to help, but we are only one voice. The concept that Kevin's put up there on the inland port is a really good one. Both him and I have been working on for 2 years. I wouldn't say it's a dead duck, but it's a solution that can be solved if we all work together. Thank you. One more thing, the success to my business, or our business I should say, is not using the word can't and turning the impossible into where possible. I think we all got to take that attitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I now invite Councillor Jim O'Malley, Chair of the Infrastructure Services Committee, to speak.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me here tonight. I want to thank Andrew for organising this. I'm going to touch on the inland port, then get back to probably why we're all here tonight. The inland port's a very interesting idea, and it's very similar to another one that is being explored at the Regional Transport Committee, which is for a bigger one near Melbourne, just north of Milton. And the reason that's being looked at by the Regional Transport Committee is because of its relationship to the Central Otago Road. It's the fact that State Highway 1 and the railway line are right next to each other, and it doesn't require any interaction with any built-up communities at the moment. So I'll be very interested to actually follow up with the two of you in terms of where that's going to go in the future. I mentioned the Regional Transport Committee. This is a committee that is put together by NZTA Wakakatahi, and it has a representative from every council in the Otago and Southland on that committee, and I'm the DCC's rep. At that committee, that is where the transport spend for the whole Otago Southland region is worked out, and it works out on a 3-year cycle that's funded on. So you'd be aware maybe of the Dunedin City funding cycles which all councils go under, which is the long-term plan cycle. Every 3 years we put a 10-year budget out, and then 3 years later we go and do it again. If you want any work done that requires capital investment, you've got to be sitting in the long-term plan, otherwise that work can't get done. So you've got to be thinking in terms of 3-year cycles as to whether or not you've got a large capital investment like a heavy traffic bypass for Mosgiel to get done, and to make sure that you get in, because if you miss that cycle, you quite literally will miss 3 years into the future. And the reason that it's funded like that is essentially a central government decision on how to build budgets. They don't want to be building, it was felt, I guess, about probably 20 years ago, this came in for councils, a rather ineffective and inefficient method of building budgets, big budgets every year, was pushed out to let's do it every 3 years. But the consequence of that is then, of course, you've got to be aware of that's going on. So I want to come back and touch on the heavy traffic bypass for Mosgiel in general. What happened in the past happened I wasn't even living in Dunedin at the time, I was living in the States, so I've heard of what happened, and I think we can all fairly say that it failed to happen, and that's probably the best thing to go with that. I also think it's really fair to say now that the appetite for it being picked up again is really strong, and that's both not just locally in the Mosgiel community, but also inside the DCC itself and inside the Transport Department. So I'm here to say that in fact we really actually want to get in behind the community here on doing this, and I'm just going to take you through the steps that it takes to get that funding. So you heard earlier on that there's been some work done on Riccarton Road and from the previous work in the past. That's putting together what's called the program business case. Now, if you want to get, it will be tens of millions of dollars to build this bypass, wherever it gets built. If you want to get that kind of money from Mosgiel-Taieri, you don't get it just by putting your hand out and say, please can I have it? You go through the public consultation process, you then have to develop the business case. They will not fund you without that business case work. That in itself, because of the consultation and the engineering that goes with it, will be in the $500,000 mark. And so usually what you're going for is actually funding to get that first piece of work done in your first funding cycle. Now, if we get our act together, the next regional land transport plan is coming down next year. I'd be happy to work with the community board to make sure that a heavy traffic bypass for Mosgiel, and I won't commit anything more than that because, as people have said today, it could be Riccarton Road, it could be further down, it could be Cloudfield, although that is in the floodplain. I think we all guarantee it won't be Gordon Road, and it probably won't be Haggard Alexander anymore because the second road that was to go through the Dukes never got built, and there's been a massive amount of houses built on there since. And that gets back to why there will probably be a request back from Mosgiel-Taieri to do another consultation. That's because the road use and the actual living activities in the Mosgiel area have changed quite a lot in the last 20 years. So there's no way we will get funding to just do Riccarton Road without going back and reassessing it. But other than that, I really don't see any particular barriers, but we've just got to go through the process and start working on it from now. I'm looking, and Andrew and I have talked about this already, I'm looking for the community board to take a significant lead on this because they are your local representatives. They have a lot more to do with you than, as much as we like to think we do. The community boards, I'm on the Waipori Coast Community Board. I know what a community board does in terms of representing its community and getting what sometimes it feels like an intransigent council to turn up. But I really want to say to you tonight that I certainly, from my perspective as Chair of Infrastructure, am taking this very seriously. It has been already sitting on transport books in terms of what will we do next. Currently, you'll be very aware of what's called the harbour arterial work, which is moving heavy traffic down to the harbour and trying to get it off the State Highway 1 in the middle of town. And then we had a major fight and won with Mosgiel-Taieri over keeping the one-way system but making it a lot nicer to live in and look at than it is right now. That work's underway, so that work sits in the capital program to be executed right now. It was always our intention that the next thing after that would be the heavy traffic bypass, so I think this has come at a good time, this meeting. Everybody is pretty much aligned. So what I would say is that we have the consultation for the 10-year plan coming up. This will definitely be in it. As a community, if you can get behind that and say, yes, you want it, that message will be well and truly received inside the council, and then we'll be able to start working on it. The caution I want to put forward is the way in which central government funds us, and I can assure you as ratepayers, you do not want to do this just DCC alone. We will get at least 50%, and we could get as high as 75 or 80%, depending on how Mosgiel-Taieri views it, co-spending from central government. So if we were to go ahead and do it ourselves without them as partners, we could probably get it out in the next 2 or 3 years, but it could cost 2 to 3 times as much to the ratepayer as we'd be getting the government in as a partner. So we have to go in on their cycles as well. There's even a very good case, in fact, moving State Highway out of Gordon Road and moving it to wherever that bypass was. Because obviously, well, actually the real reason you want to do that is if it's a state highway, then the government pays for the whole lot. And we've brought that up a couple of times, and maybe even in this review of the heavy traffic bypass, we might talk about moving the state highway out of the main road and moving it to another place. So there's a few things to be done. But I really want to say to you tonight that we have the consultation for the 10-year plan coming up. This will definitely be in it. As a community, if you can get behind that and say, yes, you want it, that message will be well and truly received inside the council, and then we'll be able to start working on it. The caution I want to there's basically things to be done in order. If we do them in order, I think you could see serious work being done on the heavy traffic bypass in 5 or 6 years' time. And I know that you're like, I can't believe it takes that long, but that's quite literally how long it does take if you do it. If today we decided to do it, by the time the government write the cheque, it'd be 4 to 5 years, and there'd be another 2 years to actually before you see the works. But it's not that long ago that you remember Dave Cull's the mayor, and that's been over 6 years ago. So time passes quite quickly. If we get on with it, we can get it done. If we don't get on with it, we'll be sitting here in another 6 years' time wondering why we haven't done anything. So I just want to say we're right here to do our part, and when we do our part, it will take a little bit of time, but that's not us dragging our feet, that's just dealing with the process. So thanks very much, thanks for coming out tonight.